Welcome to The True Guy. Globe Brief Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for updates. It started with a headline, a few words that would ripple across borders and hearts. But this wasn't splashed across the front page of a grand national newspaper. Instead, it quietly appeared on a small local blog, nestled among stories of neighborhood events and everyday life. The title was simple, almost unassuming. Japanese priest says Filipino faith saved his soul. Yet its simplicity was its power. The words traveled faster than anyone could have predicted, stirring curiosity in the bustling streets of Tokyo and igniting a quiet pride in the neighborhoods of Manila. The story centered on Father Kenji Tanaka, a priest sent from Japan to teach in the Philippines. But as the days passed, it became clear that he was not just a teacher, he was becoming the most devoted of students. This was not the story anyone expected. People had assumed he would bring wisdom, tradition, and discipline. Instead, he found himself learning lessons he never anticipated. Father Kenji was meant to be the steady hand, the guiding presence, the one who would share his faith and knowledge. But the headline told a different tale, a reversal, a turning of the tables. It was as if the teacher had become the pupil, and the lesson was about the heart. The article suggested that the true treasure was not what Father Kenji brought with him, but what he discovered among the people he came to serve. The soul that was saved, in the end, was his own, a transformation that went deeper than words could capture. People everywhere clicked, read, and shared the story. They wanted to understand how a disciplined, reserved man could find salvation in what to outsiders looked like beautiful chaos, a vibrant, noisy, loving Filipino community. The article showed him in a barong Tagalog, smiling widely, surrounded by Filipino faces. It was a picture of joy, of belonging, of a man who had found a new family. He looked less like a foreign missionary, and more like a beloved uncle who had finally come home sharing laughter and meals, stories and prayers. The image itself was a sermon, one of belonging, love, and the invisible walls between cultures coming down, brick by brick, replaced by open arms. The world began to ask, who was this Father Kenji? What was it about the Filipino spirit that could move a man so deeply? What had changed him so profoundly? Was it the warmth of the people, the strength of their faith, or something even more mysterious? The story was more than a viral post. It was a lesson wrapped in a human life, a living testament to the power of humility and openness. It was a reminder that faith is not a monologue, but a conversation in the heart, a dialogue that can cross oceans and cultures, changing both speaker and listener. The world leaned in, ready to listen. For in this story, people saw hope, that even in a divided world, understanding and transformation are possible. One headline, one heart at a time. Before the Philippines, there was Kyoto. Father Kenji was shaped by the quiet dignity and order of Japanese culture. His faith was a meticulously tended garden, silent, disciplined, and precise. He believed this was the purest form of faith, untainted by emotion, elevated by control. When his bishop sent him to the Philippines, he accepted with stoic obedience, ready to teach, not to be changed. He packed his books and plans, expecting to bring order to a new flock. He was utterly unprepared for what awaited him. His first assignment was a small parish outside Manila. The chapel was humble, alive with noise and movement. Children giggled, mothers fanned themselves, old men greeted each other warmly. Statues were touched and adorned, faith was tactile and personal. The altar was draped in color, saints wore basketball jerseys. Reverence thrived in the middle of life's beautiful mess. The sounds, a whirring fan, a rooster, whispered prayers, blended into a chorus. He had come to fill a spiritual void but found a space overflowing with faith. His ordered garden had been transplanted into a wild, vibrant jungle. The first Sunday Mass was a revelation. The Mass began with upbeat music, clapping, and joyful singing. Worship here was a full-body experience. People swayed, smiled, and engaged. The congregation responded, nodded, and even spoke during the homily. The sign of peace was an explosion of hugs and laughter. A child's simple gesture broke through his reserve. He was just father, part of the family. After communion, gratitude filled the air. Announcements and songs continued. People lingered, inviting him for coffee, sharing food and stories. He realized he'd celebrated the same Mass, but it felt like a different faith. For the first time, he wondered if his silent, orderly faith was missing something. The most profound lessons arrived not within the walls of a classroom, but in the unpredictable rhythms of daily life. Here, in the heart of a rural Filipino village, the priest found that wisdom was woven into every sunrise, every footstep on muddy paths, and every quiet greeting from a neighbor. During the town fiesta, a sudden downpour threatened to wash away the festivities. Yet, the celebration only grew louder, laughter and music rising above the storm. Faith, he realized, was not about waiting for the rain to stop, but about dancing joyfully in the midst of it, trusting that joy and hope could thrive even when skies were gray. At a funeral, grief was not hidden or hurried. Tears flowed freely, and sorrow was shared openly among friends and strangers alike. The priest's words felt small against such loss, but he learned that sometimes, simply being present, offering a gentle hand or a silent prayer, could speak louder than any sermon. He discovered that faith was not a magic cure for pain. Instead, it was the courage to face suffering together, to hold hands through storms, and to find comfort in shared prayers and embraces. In the bustling market, a fish vendor noticed his confusion and offered help without hesitation or expectation. The simple act of kindness given freely became a lesson in generosity and humility. "You are for us, so we are for you," she said, her words carrying the weight of community and belonging. In that moment, he understood that love was a circle, always returning to those who give it. Kindness, service, and community were not just words from the gospel, they were lived out daily, in shared meals, in helping hands, and in the quiet sacrifices made for one another. He saw faith alive not just on Sundays, but in the small, unnoticed acts of love that filled every day. Families praying together, neighbors sharing what little they had, strangers offering smiles and support. He realized that faith was not a shield that kept suffering away, but a bridge that carried people through it. In times of calamity, the community gathered, holding candles against the darkness, supporting each other with unwavering hope. The burdens of life were made lighter when carried together. In moments of hardship, the community's strength was found in unity, in the willingness to share both sorrow and joy. He was learning that faith was not about having all the answers, but about showing up, being present, and walking alongside others in their journey. The Philippines, with its vibrant chaos and unpredictable beauty, was teaching him to see God not in perfection, but in the messiness and unpredictability of real life. Each day brought a new lesson, a new way of seeing the world and himself. Slowly, gently he was being changed, one lesson in rain and sorrow at a time. The man forged in silence was beginning to crack. Years of quiet discipline, of holding his emotions close, had built a polished exterior. But now, small fissures appeared in the armor he'd so carefully constructed. The vibrant life of his parish invaded his quiet soul. He struggled to pray as before. The laughter of children, the chatter of families, the constant hum of life in the church unsettled his once ordered world, making it impossible to retreat into solitude. His old habits felt hollow, disconnected from the raw experiences around him. The prayers he once recited with certainty now seemed distant, as if they belonged to another life, another man. He saw grace, suffering, and community in daily life, not just in doctrine. The faith he'd studied for years was alive in the laughter, tears, and embraces of his parishioners, in the way they cared for one another through hardship and joy. He started leaving his office door open, listening more than advising. He realized that sometimes the greatest gift he could offer was simply to be present, to hear the stories and struggles of those who came to him. His presence became his most powerful sermon. Without words, he offered comfort and understanding, showing that faith could be lived quietly, through compassion and attention. He smiled more, tapped his foot to church songs, let the light in. The music, the sunlight, the voices of the people, all these things began to fill the spaces where silence once reigned. During a typhoon, the chapel became a refuge. People prayed for each other, not possessions. In the storm's chaos, he witnessed a deeper faith, a faith rooted in togetherness, in shared hope and vulnerability. In the candlelit darkness, he felt his last resistance wash away. The flickering lights revealed not just the faces of his flock, but the truth of his own heart. He needed them as much as they needed him. He was no longer their teacher or superior, just one of them. The boundaries between priest and people faded, replaced by a sense of belonging and mutual care. He found shelter not in silence, but in shared faith. The prayers of the community became his own, their hopes and fears echoing in his heart. The cracks let the light in, and he was remade by the community's love. What once felt like weakness became a source of strength, as he allowed himself to be changed by those around him. He was learning to minister with his heart, discovering that true leadership meant vulnerability, openness, and the courage to be transformed by love. Simple conversations chiseled away at his old self. Lita, the choir leader, told him, "In Japan you look for God in the perfect flower. Here we look for God in the whole garden, even with the weeds. A fisherman explained, "Our joy is noisy, that's how we show love to God." He learned faith was not about perfection, but about embracing the struggle. Each conversation, about teaching, farming, or family, became a stone in a new foundation. The most profound moment came in silence, holding a grieving husband's hand, sharing humanity in loss. He was no longer an outsider but a sharer in sorrow and love. He sought out these conversations, hungry for wisdom. Faith became real in the metaphors of daily life. He learned to minister with his heart, not just his mind. The community's wisdom transformed him. He was finally part of their family. He had learned to love with abandon. The transformation became visible to all. He learned the local language, spoke with warmth, and built bridges. Wearing the Barong Tagalog, he felt liberated, no longer a foreign dignitary, but a member of the community. His ministry changed. Mass was reverent but joyful. He started a youth basketball league, joined meals, and found God in ordinary places. At a baptism, surrounded by smiling faces, he felt truly at home. He was no longer a Japanese priest in a foreign land, but Father Kenji, their priest. The silence of Kyoto was a memory. His life was now filled with loving noise. He was remade by love, belonging, and faith lived out loud. He had found his home. The viral blog post came from a simple interview. Father Kenji said, "I came to teach faith, but you taught me what faith feels like. Loud, joyful, sometimes messy. You filled my soul with life. You saved me from silence." His words became a sermon that resonated far beyond his parish. Faith is not an intellectual exercise, but a relationship, open, loving, and real. True reverence is found in honest expression, not absence of emotion. His journey was a pilgrimage of the soul, a return to the heart of the gospel. The lesson faith is not about perfect stillness, but dancing with grace. God meets us in our noise, our questions, our imperfections. Faith is a love that must be lived, openly, communally, and sometimes a little messily.